Okay, welcome back to us checking out some 3D CAD tools. So I've just inserted a new part studio. We've already done work planes, revolve, sweep, and helix, and right now we are going to do the Loft tool. Let me reveal my planes. Okay, so the Loft tool is used to transition between two different shapes. The most obvious thing to do is to loft between two parallel planes, but you don't have to do that. But I will make a offset plane. How about maybe offset to the right? Kind of just put it over there. And I'm going to sketch on one right plane, and I'm going to have one shape. I'm not going to spend time worrying about exact shapes right now, but I'm going to do kind of simple geometry. But I want you to see how it transitions. So here I have a rectangle, and over here I'm going to have a circle. And these are parallel planes. Now, I wasn't even close to lining them up, I guess, because I was in this view that I couldn't see that. So oh, and you know what? Okay, that's why. Yep. So what I intended to do is to put a sketch on this plane and put a circle back over there. I'll approximately line them up by just having that orthographic view from the right. Okay, so maybe if I hide those planes. So I have two different sketches in two different planes, and imagine that I have an object that has a rectangular face and another part of the object that's got this round face, and I actually want to connect them and to fill that in. So the Loft tool is right next to Sweep, and the Loft tool is going to give us the ability to add material connecting this shape to this shape. And there is the ability to add and remove and things like extruding different features, but we're just going to do the add right now. So I can choose this face. It is going to require two different faces or two sketch regions to do this. So there's my two, and there you go. And it's just going to create its own transition to connect that. There are some advanced things to start to control the curves and those lines, etc. But for right now, I'm going to just leave it at that. Okay, so we got some transition between rectangle and circle to have a solid. So let me go with, all right, let me go with two sketches that are not in parallel planes. So how about I sketch on the front plane a rectangle, and I'm going above the top plane to have some space there. You'll see why. And then I'm going to sketch on the top plane, and not right below that rectangle, but out a little bit, out in front. I'm going to put a circle. So here we have two surfaces, two faces that are not parallel to each other, but maybe I still want to transition between them. And the Loft tool can do this as well. So I'm going to choose one sketch region, the second sketch region, and there you go. It creates that transition. Okay. Now, what if we wanted this to not go in a straight line, but maybe have kind of a bend or curve to it? Well, that can be done as well. If I go back into the Loft menu, there are some other things like guides, continuity, and path. Path is really what I want, and it then kind of makes it like a sweep. So it's like following a path. But before I can use that, I would need to actually have a path to follow. So let's delete the Loft for a second, and let's come back and take a peek and think about what I could use. If I want a path, I really want to sketch from this face, the sketch region, to this one and defining that path. So I really want another plane. I think the most appropriate one here would be to use the 3-point plane. And I don't know if it's going to let me use midpoints. Yep, without, I thought maybe I have to go into the sketch region and use the point tool to make the midpoints, but I don't. So I think I'm going to have a vertical plane that goes through the center of the circle and then also kind of right through the center of the rectangle. So my 3 points will be this midpoint, and the center of the circle. And I get a plane that slices right through those. Okay, and then it's on that plane that I will sketch a profile. I'm going to turn it this way, and I'm just going to do a basic arc. Oh, I might need. All right, I think I'm going to give myself. Let me go back to the sketch with the rectangle. I'm going to go ahead and give myself a point that's like dead center. So I'm going to get a line to this midpoint and a line to that midpoint, and I think I want that path to go center to center of those two profiles. Okay. All right, so let's do a loft. Oh, sorry. Sketch on that plane, and we're going to do an arc from that center to the center of the rectangle. And I'm not going to go crazy, you know, something too crazy and it might have issues with it, but I'm going to do something like that. Okay, so now when I do the loft, let me hide the planes. I am going to choose this arc as a path, as a guide. Okay, so let's turn on the loft tool. Let's choose our two profiles, and it gives that default, the one that goes straight. And then I'm going to check this little path button. And then there's a box here that says edges, curves, and sketches. So I'm going to choose the curve, that arc. And then it's got the ability to kind of break this into sections. And more sections, it seems to be a little smoother. One, it's kind of almost straight to that point, and then to here, it does curve it. But you can play around with the number of sections, and you see that as you increase that, does change a little bit, but at this point it doesn't seem to be changing nearly as much, going from 4 to 5 as it did from 1 to 2. All right, so I'm going to leave it like that. We're not going to add too much more. Okay, so there you go. That's the basic of a loft, is transitioning between two different faces, two different sketch regions. They can be or but don't have to be parallel. Here it says create, add to, subtract from, or intersect parts or surfaces by placing a smooth face between ordered profiles. So you can also use more than two profiles to transition further, from 1 to 2 onto a third. All right, while we're here, let's add to this. I'm going to rename this loft and shell. Scooting down the way a little bit, there is a tool, if you want to search for it to make it easier to find and highlight it. Shell, it looks like a box that there's gray in the middle. It's like it's been hollowed out. So if you turn on the shell tool, okay, it asks for faces to remove. I'm going to go with this curved one. So what if I wanted this to be, kind of like a vent or duct or something where air was traveling through the inside of it. So I want the ends to be open. So I would, with faces to remove here selected, I would click on this face, but I want the other end as well to be open so that it could be like a through part. I would click on this right here, and it removes those two faces and basically hollows the rest of it out. You can then specify the thickness of the walls that are left. Okay, so that is the shell tool. Now, the shell tool can be used to hollow a part out without removing any faces. You would just click on this little hollow part, and then it's asking for, okay, which part do you want to hollow? And we made the blue part first, so I will click on the blue part. It again is going to ask for the thickness, and I would accept it. Now the issue with that, if I don't remove a face, is it looks exactly the same. You can't really tell that unless you were to slice it in half. So if I turn on a section view, maybe using that plane, pull this out, the section view will allow me to see that it was hollowed out. But yes, otherwise you would not see that. Okay, so there is loft and shell. I'd like you to try to make these parts and to play around with those for a second. Okay, next up, I'm going to make another part studio, and I'm going to sketch on the front plane. I'm going to make kind of an L shape again. It's been a common one. And I'm going to extrude that because I want just a solid object with some edges to choose. So with this, I wanted to show you some other tools here. Kind of wanted to skip over that one, but I guess thicken up, we can cover real quick. Thicken, you can choose a face, and it just basically kind of, you could extrude too, but it adds to that face and thickens the part. I'm not going to actually thicken that, but that's a part right there. You could investigate those a little bit yourself. What I wanted to go to is the fillet and the chamfer. These are edge treatments. So the fillet tool, okay, um, you're going to pick an edge, and as you pick an edge, it rounds it over with a quarter round. You can go edge by edge, or you could choose a whole face. Once you've done that, you can set the radius. Um, and again, I'm going to skip kind of all the other detail right now. We're going to keep it pretty simple. But that's kind of the fill tool. It is used to round over corners. You can make multiple selections at once and set all of those selections to the same value. That way, if you want to edit them to make them all bigger or all smaller as a group, you don't have to go back and have, like, 5 or 10 fillets over here. You just have one. You open up one menu, edit one, and that's it. Okay. In addition to fillet, we have another tool very similar, but it's not going to round it over. It's going to chop off the corner with a plane, and it's called chamfer. Chamfer probably will open default under equal distances. You go to the back side of this and choose an edge. And I don't, it's on some big number. Okay. I'd edit mine a little bit to make sure it was going to work. But this is going to basically go back from that edge on these two surfaces that come together to make that edge equal distances. So it should be at a 45-degree angle to either of those two planes. That's your basic chamfer. Okay, now you can chamfer with two distances. So instead of having equal distances, you could go back one length from along one plane, one distance, and a different length from the other. So this can be an kind of asymmetrical or a non-45-degree angle chamfer as well. So you can play around with that, showcasing that. And you can, let's go back, use the fill tool maybe on the interior corners. I could fill it along an interior edge, and in that case, it fills in and rounds, kind of adds material to round that in. Might go around and just, yep, there you go. Kind of get some fillets to transition that inside. And so there you go, some edge treatments, fillet and chamfer. So I'm going to rename this part Studio Fillet and Chamfer. Just make sure you've seen those and can use those as well.